Another troubleshooting call, service call. This call, the farmer said that irrigator won't run or stay running in either direction. Kind of unique. There's not too many of these left, but this is a mobile pivot, so towable. So they were able to move this from one field to another. These were pretty popular for a while, and then until enough irrigators got put up that they no longer had to move them around, because it was a lot of work, took a lot of time. So let's dig into this one and see what we can find. This is an old, or what we call a old gray box. This is what came with a 310, 307, 410, 510. It's a pretty old panel. There are quite a few of these around yet, but not too many people know how to work on these anymore, I guess. So, sometimes you need to be a little cautious when you're on these too, because there is power right here. Right on the top of this is 480 volts. So make sure you don't stick your fingers where they don't belong. Right now the power is off. I'm just looking here to see if there's anything obvious right now. I see this ground wire is been a little hot, but it's not completely melted, so that's not a real concern. So one thing that these need, let me see if I can find a spot to mount you here. So for these irrigators to work, they need a good safety, and on this age of panel, the safety gives the power starts from here, goes all the way out through or out to the end of the irrigator, and then it comes back through all the micro switches, the safety micro switches in the tower boxes. So first thing I'm going to do is check to see if we've got a good safety out on the machine. And we do not. I'm just testing my meter, make sure it is working. And we do not have a good safety out on the machine. Now what? All right, so a few places it could be right up there. That's the collector ring. So there's brushes and brass rings in there that power. That's how it's distributed as the irrigator does a circle. So it can continue to make circles without wires getting tangled up. So it could be there, or it could be in one of the tower boxes, or it could be a span cable. So we're going to go to the easiest thing first. We're going to start with the tower boxes. I'm going to close up the panel here, because this is one thing that got pounded into me pretty hard when I first started, is never walk away from the panel with it open, because you never know what's going to happen, and you could get called away, could just get distracted, could need parts, and it's easy to forget that you left it open unless you close it every time. So we're going to close this up, then we'll start checking tower boxes. Okay, here's the first tower 1 tower box. It is an old one, but looks like it's still in good shape. So remember, the power is off here, so it's finger safe. So this is where the power, or the safety, just gets looped through, goes all the way out to the end, and then it comes back on these. So the 10 in, 10 out is where it comes back here. We just have some extra cable here, so I got to figure out which one is coming from. Okay, so this one is our outgoing, which I kind of suspected. So that means this one would be coming from the end of the pivot. We should have continuity. If everything's right, we should have continuity between those. And we do not. So it's still further out. But while we're here, we're going to check this one for continuity. So this should be good. This is just testing the tower box and the safety circuit. This is the safety micro switch. One with 2 wires on it's the safety micro switch. So we're testing this, we're testing the disconnect, and just general wiring in between. And that all looks good. So the cover back on and go to the next tower box. It's all part of the troubleshooting. If it would have been good continuity here, then I would have went back to the collector ring and checked that out. But since the problem is still further out, we're gonna go further out. All right, we're on tower 2. Open this up. Looks okay. So again, we have continuity is good in the tower box, but it's still further out on this system. So put the lid back on this one and go to tower 3. Okay, here's tower 3. And this one looks a little bit different because, you know, it's the 3rd tower. This is only a 4-tower system. So that makes this the next to the last tower. And on Zomatic irrigators, which that's what this is, we have what's called an overwatering timer in the next to the last tower. So that's what this timer is here. So the way this works is if this tower doesn't move or doesn't get a signal to run, this timer will count down. And once this counts down to 0, it opens up the safety circuit. If it gets a signal to run from the direction micro switch, then this will reset, or should reset, and then the safety circuit will stay completed. All right, so we're gonna, once again, we're still gonna do our same test. We're gonna go to our outbound so it is good going up from here, right? So that's, we have continuity. Now let's test this tower box. We don't have continuity here. So the problem is in this tower box. So the area of spots where it could be is in the safety marker switch, which is this one right here. It could be in the tower disconnect, which is this right here, or it could be in the timer. I'm suspecting the timer, but I'm going to test that last. The safety micro switch, you should be able to put your tester on the common and the normally closed, and we have good continuity there. Now we have one of these wires goes right to the terminal strip, and the other one goes down through the disconnect. So we're going to test the disconnect next. That is good. So now let's check the timer. That is bad. So our problem is the timer, which is a pretty common thing. These overwatering timers, they reset every time this tower moves. So that can be thousands of cycles. They have a lifespan, and then they're sitting out here in the elements. You know, they're under a lid, but they still get heat cycles, cold cycles, and then run cycles. So there's lots of things that can make it go bad. I'm going to grab a screwdriver, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to jumper these temporarily so we can test, run the system when we get back to the pivot point, because that's where my truck is. We'll go back to the pivot point, we'll test run the system, make sure that everything works, and if it does, we'll come back here and we will replace this overwatering timer. So, to explain this overwatering timer a little more, what it's for is if something happens to the last tower. It gets stuck, gearbox goes bad, it drops the drive shaft, the motor quits, whatever. For whatever reason the last tower doesn't move anymore, then this tower won't move because the whole irrigator follows the last tower. So the last tower sets the speed, how fast it's going, or if it's moving at all, it's all based on the last tower. So if that one doesn't move, none of the other ones will move to continue keeping up. They may briefly when you first start it up to get in line, but they won't continue to move. So if this doesn't get a run signal, this tower box, then the overwatering timer will time out and it will open up. And that's so the irrigator doesn't just sit and water in one spot. It's really inconvenient when you're not watering, but when you are watering, you don't want it just sitting here and putting all the water in one spot. And it'll just flood this whole area underneath the irrigator. And then you will have continuous problems throughout the year. You'll just have wet spots, deep ruts. It's not good to happen. So the overwatering timer is a very good thing to have, but it can cause trouble. It's just some place that you need to know, or I need to know to check to see if it's good or not. So we will replace it, and then we'll test it again. First, I'm going to bypass it so that we can test to make sure the rest of the system works, and then we'll come back and replace it. Okay, we're back at the panel, and I am going to do another test here to see, just to verify that our safety circuit is now good. And I am using the ohm setting on my meter, which is it's the horseshoe, right? So what that is testing is resistance or on a circuit. And with a lot of math, you can figure out in the wire size and the length of the wire, you can figure out how many ohms of resistance should be on per feet of wire. But for this, we're just checking for continuity. And continuity is basically, right now it's open, so it says open line. And when you put them together, you should have very little ohms of resistance, very few. So you know that you have a good circuit. So we're going back to our safety terminals. Look at that, we still don't have a good circuit. Interesting. I'm just checking different spots here to make sure that I'm getting a good connection points. So we don't have continuity yet, which could mean it's in the collector ring. But while I'm here, I am going to try to run it and see what happens now. If I can get this to close. All right, here we go. So we're turned on. This one's pretty basic. We have a forward, off, reverse, forward, off, reverse, start button, and this tower check used to work. It was basically doing an ohm check on the safety circuit. Most of that out on the tower boxes have been removed. This is a percent timer, so this is where you set the speed, how much the last tower moves per 60-second cycle, and these are your pump controls. So we won't be starting the pump right now. We shouldn't be. So it's set to reverse, which is counterclockwise, so it should go that way. So it is working, and this sometimes happens that the collector readings, especially if they're dirty, you won't get a good ohm reading, but you will get voltage to go through them. It's a little weird. So voltage is going through right now. We are holding safety, which is what we want. But all we've tested so far is reverse. So what we're going to do is we're going to stop it, turn it off, and it shuts off right away. And then we'll go to forward, hit our start button. And you can't see it, but I can. They are going forward, and it's staying locked in. This is what we call locked in. So our safety circuit is holding the direction contactor in. If we break the safety circuit, it would let the direction contactor open up. So everything is working on this end. We're going to stop it again. We're going to turn the power off. I'm going to latch this door because we should be done in here. Then we'll go out to the next to last tower again, place the overwatering timer, which I believe I have one in my truck, and then we will come back to the pivot point and test it again. Alright, we're back at the next to last tower. Irrigator repairmen get lots of exercise because not only do we get to walk pivots, we get to climb a few towers, back down again, back to the pivot point, and back again. But I see now my battery's almost dead, so I'm gonna get this timer replaced. We've got a new style. I don't have the old one with. I'll show it to you once I get it installed, and then we'll do a test. Okay, here's the old one, here's the new one. We normally set these in our area 10 to 15 minutes. Different areas may have a different setting, but that's what we usually do. Safety wires, neutral, our trigger for our coil, and then this one's for the reset. So now we'll go back to the pivot point and test it again. Hopefully we're done. Alright, we've walked back to the pivot point, carried our garbage out because this may look like a bare field to you, this bare ground, but this is like your backyard to a farmer. He doesn't want garbage laying all over it. Farmers do a lot to maintain their ground so it's productive, and part of that is keeping it clean, trying to keep the erosion down. They keep the fertilizer or the nutrient levels up so that they can grow bountiful crops. Farmers are just absolutely amazing on how good they take care of their ground, because without the ground the farmer couldn't grow a crop. They wouldn't be a farmer anymore. So all right, back at the pivot point, power back on. We'll go in reverse first, and it's running. I know you can't exactly see it out there, but it's moving. I'm gonna let it run for a little bit and make sure that that timer resets, and if it does, then we're done. The only thing left to do is to fill out the invoice and head to the next job, because when it comes to irrigators, there's always more work to do. It sometimes depends whether you can get in the field and get the work done, but there's always work to do. So thanks for coming along, and we'll see you in the next one.